Okay, lethal lattes, number 3. What I did was my video started messing up on me here, but what I skipped was I put my design on the plaque and then I base coated in my celery green for the background. And then I started with the cup. I painted the cup orange with spiced pumpkin. Now I'm taking my angled brush and I'm going to go ahead and shade around my design and around the outside edges of the plaque. I'm using avocado and it's pretty thick. I mean, it's pretty dark, but I like it that way. That's the way I want it. And I do have quite a bit of water on my brush, and you'll see me go back and kind of just spread it out a little bit because it runs a little bit. I probably should have dabbed some of that water off of there. But it's spreading nice and nice even. And just go around your whole design. Okay, I've got my plaque all outlined with the float of the avocado, and I'm coming back in with Canyon Orange, and I'm going to shade, or I've started shading around my cup here. But you'll notice after I do the top and the bottom of the label, I decide to go ahead and do the lines on my cup first. Since they're behind that, I wanted the shading on top of those lines, so I'll let this dry for a minute and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to go ahead and start my black. I'm using a really small angle brush here and I just have thinned down lamp black on my brush and I'm just going to just make some lines, some thin lines. You'll notice they're not perfectly straight. I did not draw those lines on, although you could, if you wanted to, take the pattern and draw those lines on there for yourself. And just go through your spiders because they're going to be painting over those anyway. You definitely want to let those lines dry before you do any more shading on there. I took a break and took the dog for a walk and let it dry. And then I'm going to come back in with my Canyon Orange and I'm going to go ahead and shade around my design. You can kind of see a couple of them weren't as dry as I thought they were, but for the most part it was dry. And again, with those little latte whipped cream little dollops there, just kind of go around them. You're going to paint over those anyway, so if you hit where they go, it's no big deal. You're going to be covering it up. I like the way this looked, but I did go back in. You'll see me later. We're going to go back in and darken those up a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and base coat in my candies down here, my candy corn with Snow White. I just want my colors to pop a little bit more. So base coating those with Snow White will make those colors pop out. And I just base coated all of them. Now we're going to go ahead and base coat our whipped cream. We're doing this with light mocha. And I'm sorry I didn't have this quite within the frame. I thought I did. But I'm just base coating the foam in. I really like this color. And here you could use a smaller angle brush. It'd probably be easier. But I already had this one and I wanted to go ahead and use it. Here's where you can kind of see where the wood grain is kind of making it more of a problem to get into all these little areas. But like I said, you see it a little bit more when I'm shading. You see right there? It's just because I did not sand that down good. So that's something you need to remember when you're working with your wood. You really want to get those wood grain sanded down to a smooth finish. For the label type thing on the cup, I'm base coating this with buttermilk. And I'm just going to be doing just basically base coating. And you just go around it twice because I wanted a nice good coat on this. Still using my angle brush. Angle brushes are just great for getting in all those little corners. Okay, I picked up some cocoa on my angle brush and I'm going to start shading in the whipped cream at the top. And again, I'm using a larger angle brush. You can always drop down to the next size if that's what's easier for you. And if you have to, you can do one side and then let that dry and then come back and do the other side of those little droplets. I end up using the tip of my angle brush in there. You want to make sure you let those outside edges dry before you come back in and start doing the next little rows of shading here, where you're kind of defining those little ridges of the foam. Because otherwise it'll take off what you're putting on the sides. So let those dry real good. Now I'm going to go ahead and shade the label. At least that's what I call it. I guess it's whatever you hold it with. Um, the label is shaded with milk chocolate. And I'm just going over it real carefully, but I will go back and deepen that color because I want it a little bit darker. And milk chocolate is just such a rich color. It's very nice. And it looks really good on this. And make sure those sides are dry before you go back into your top and bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and start painting our candies. I've got lemon yellow on my little angle brush, and I'm just filling in that middle section of each of the candies with lemon yellow. And it will take a couple coats because it's a pretty translucent color. See how bright that is with that white underneath it? It just looks much better. Now we're going to add our spiced pumpkin to our candy corn. And again, just a nice coat. You can do 2 coats. You don't really have to. With that white under there, it makes it really nice and bright. I'm shading the orange sections of my candy corn with Canyon Orange. And I'm going to go around all 4 sides of the orange sections. I just like to have them all shaded. It's kind of like outlining them. Now the yellow I'm shading with Marigold. And again, I'm doing all 4 sides of those yellow sections with Marigold. The white area of the candy corn, I'm using a little bit of spiced pumpkin. And I just kind of go around that bottom edge and up one of the sides. All right, now we're going to add some life to our painting. I'm going to start floating the highlighting on the whipped cream, and I'm going to go around each one of those little doblets that are hanging down there. And one thing about the highlighting with Snow White is I mean, it looks dark here when you see it, but it does lighten up. So I do go back over those and brighten those up later. They just seem to fade away after you get them on there. So I always add more. It looks bright right now. And I just want that to look really, really highlighted so it looks like it's kind of standing up. I love highlighting and doing the details. It just makes everything come to life. I always tell people not to get discouraged when you're painting and you're base coating, even though that's the part you really have to do. It doesn't look as nice, but when you start that highlighting, that really just makes it come, to life for you. I decided I wanted a little bit of brightness added to my cup. So I've got some lemon yellow and I'm just kind of going down that one side a little bit. But then I decide, well, I'd really like maybe to stipple some on there. So I grab my stippler and I just start putting it on instead. And I just did like the middle at the bottom of the cup and then a little bit on the top. You can see I'm trying to decide whether I want to do that or not. Now I get my stippler. And I just did it really light, but it really brightens up that cup and it just adds some dimension to it. Not a lot, just a little here and there. Now I'm highlighting my candies. This was a little bit darker than I intended, and I actually do go back and clean that up a little bit and lighten it up a little bit. It's just a little bit darker white than I wanted. And the way I lightened that up, I just added more orange and then did it again. Here's where I'm coming back in with some black plum. And I just wanted to darken that up and add a little bit more depth, make that foamy, white, frothy, good stuff on the top. I wanted it to just look like it was really just hanging over the edge of the cup. So I thought I'd darken this up a little bit, and I really like the way this turned out. And like I said, I'm just using some of the black plum. Again, it just adds a little bit more dimension to your projects. That shading, it can make all the difference in the world. And as you see, I am going to go around the cup label and around the candies at the bottom as well. Look at that. That just makes it right there. It's great. Okay. Excuse me. I decided to go ahead and do my spider web, and you'll notice later that it dawns on me I should have done my letters first. So I do end up going back over the spider web with white later. And it's just thinned white. I'm using my script liner brush. Okay, so I went ahead and did my letters. I thought my camera was on, but it wasn't. But I did the letters, and now I'm going to go back again with my white and do those spider webs. Now I'm taking some of my lamp black, and I'm stippling in with a stencil brush. I'm just kind of stippling in my spiders. There were two to begin with, but I decided I wanted another one at the top, so I ended up adding another one. Just make fuzzy little spiders. Now, once it's dry, I came back in and stippled with some lavender just in the middle of my spiders, just to add a little bit of color. You can kind of see that spider at the top there now too. Now I'm going back in and I'm fixing my spider web. Now for the candies on top of my latte, I just used the notebook dots that you put your stencil in your notebook with, and I'm using milk chocolate and going in and just lightly stenciling in a few dots for candies. And then I'm coming in here and I'm just using some of that cocoa and going underneath my candies to make them look like they're just sitting in there. Gives them a place to rest. Okay, now I've got some bittersweet chocolate just on the tip of my angle brush, and I'm just shading the bottom of those candies with a little bit of that bittersweet chocolate. Just real lightly. It doesn't have to be anything big, just along the bottom. And now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to add a little bit of Snow White to the tops of those. Give them a little bit of shine. You can see them a little closer right there. And now I'm going to take the end of my paintbrush and I'm just going to add some milk chocolate dots. Now I'm just going to add the eyes to my spiders. I'm doing white dots on the end of my paintbrush for the eyes. And then when those dry a little bit, I'm going to come in with my liner brush and I'm just going to add two little dots of black, lamp black for the pupils. And that's all they're going to get. And I am going to come in here and I'm going to put the legs on with lamp black, thinned lamp black, using my liner brush. But it's just an easy way to make dots. You just want to make sure you don't smear them when you're doing something else. I usually leave the dots till last. Here's where I'm doing the legs with lamp black. And they're nothing particular. They're just little angled lines. And you don't have to follow the pattern. You can make their legs any way you want. I decided to add some dots to the bottom of their feet. So I'm just using the end of my paintbrush and some more of that lamp black just to add some dots to the bottoms of their feet. Now again, I'm using that stencil where the notebook little cutouts are. And I decided my border needed something. So I'm going in with magenta, or no, margarita, I'm sorry. I'm using margarita, and I'm just going to add some dots to that background, just to kind of liven it up a little bit. Make it look fun. Just be careful of your dots that you have for your eyes. Make sure they're either dry or just be real careful. And there you go, a fun, easy project, Lethal Latte. It'll be fun to put on your kitchen wall. See you soon.